Oh, welcome, John. If you'll indulge me, I'll act as chair, as I know you're parachuting in here and parachuting out quickly. So, welcome to the Squamish Nation Traditional Territory on Thursday, May 15th, 2025, for our ADP. So, first item is adoption of agenda, and that we adopt today's agenda. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's adopted. Minutes. So the advisory design panel minutes of April 17th, 2025. Staff recommendation is that we adopt these minutes. And I'll see, is everyone in agreement of this? Is anyone all in agreement? All right, we're all in agreement. Seeing none, crack on. So business DP 625. 38006 Cleveland Avenue. Bryan Daly, you're the planner. I'll let you introduce the project. And we are on a timeline for this, everyone, because we have John Chapman for just a few precious moments.
Thank you, Acting Chair. I will also be very brief, as this project has been to ADP on March 20th as well as April 17th. At the previous meeting, the ADP passed a motion that they did not support the project for the reasons that are articulated in the staff report. I won't go through them. It should be noted that ADP was advised by staff at the last meeting that this project would not be coming back for additional panel review, given that it is proposing 100% market rental and had gone twice. The applicants have volunteered to return to ADP for additional review, as they're interested in obtaining ADP support for this project prior to the DP going to council. So that's why it is coming back again today. With that, I will pass it to the applicant to go over the changes they have made to address ADP's previous comments.
Thank you, and hello, everybody. Thank you for your time coming again. So the biggest changes that we've made are to the elevations. So I might just shoot over to those so you can get a good sense of the Cleveland, there we go, the Cleveland streetscape and the Loggers Lane. So previously, where we had the large concrete look wall, we've carved out two areas now. The first one here is where there will be balconies and patios for the residential unit. The second one is just to provide a break in the large wall. As we carve into that concrete, we're revealing wood, so it'll be the same fir wood siding with the clear finish. We've also, for the canopy along that elevation, we've changed that to glass, and we've pulled it away to just cover over the commercial canopy area. On the Loggers Lane side, we have a similar treatment to the concrete wall, where we've pulled in slightly along here and added the wood finish, and also carving in here for the patios, as each of these are residential units. I'm just going to shoot back now to the ground floor site plan. We did some changes to the back, the Loggers Lane side, because there had been a few comments in that area. So the first is we've taken the PMT and pushed it over as far as we could without greatly changing the floor plan. What this did is it gave us the opportunity to actually bring the commercial space all the way back and mirror that same angled view plane cut along the ground floor. It did have us have to bump up some of the bike storage up to the second floor, but we had the space and it just made sense. I'm going to shoot back now, or shoot over to the rooftop patio. So we've enlarged the common area patio. We shrunk down also the size of the storage, as it was a little oversized. We've added a partial cover, which I'll show you in the renderings after, as it may show up better there. A partial cover that comes here over the common patio area, so that we're provided with both options of having a covered area when it's raining, as well as some area in the sun when people don't necessarily want to have the cover, as well as we've added a cover over the private patio here. Actually, the roof plan might show this better here. So this is this sort of lighter gray hatch is where these covers to the patios are. Roof covers, sorry. So back to the elevations, which one is going to show this best? Here, you can see this is the area where we have a cover. It's a solid cover where you can see the wood beams. It'll be predominantly of a wood structure and then just a covered roof. to sort of take from the language of the building kitty corner that also has some of the wood structure up there on the upper levels. So I think this is sort of the best image you can see where we've covered. Those have been the major changes that we made. And I think that wraps up my portion.
With respect to the landscaping, at the ground floor, we've incorporated into the planters in the seating area, plant material that is, lines up with the plant material that has been suggested for the new streetscape. So it's all coordinated as per the previous comment. For the rooftop, everything is pretty much the same sort of design, same plant material, same everything. We've got planters there with trees and with enough topsoil in those planters to accommodate the trees that we'll be using. But it's pretty much exactly the same on the rooftop deck, except for the size of the common area versus the private patio area. Thank you.
Okay. So as always, we'll start with a round of questions and then move into comments. And I'll start with Mr. Chapman first.
Thanks, Carlos. Yeah, I appreciate the changes made to the Cleveland facade. I guess I'm curious about load, like any accommodations for loading. My recollection for from the first time this project was presented is that there were the design panel was a little bit concerned about the lack of parking and loading on this site, recognizing with 3 busy streets that could be quite problematic. Has that been addressed at all?
Yeah, so we have a space accommodation on the Loggers Lane side where loading could occur. And it was perhaps a little unclear to me if it was referencing commercial loading, the resident, because there was also talk about a residential drop-off for the.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about sort of the operational concerns of the building, those are all significant. There'll be folks moving in and out, right? Rental buildings have kind of higher turnover. There's commercial space at grade with a restaurant, so obviously food deliveries and so on. So I think that was a fairly valid concern from the panel at that time.
Yeah, so there is space for a loading at the back. I know that there will be discussions with engineering about having smaller scale vehicles coming to the front on Cleveland that could also be used as the pedestrian drop-off for people. But sorry, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that is to be in discussion with engineering as to if there will be anything on Cleveland. But at minimum, we have loading here on Loggers Lane at the back.
Yeah, if I might add, the engineering department indicated they're certainly willing to support an accessible stall in front of the development with a letdown. And then like further discussions about specific loading for this project would be done through the servicing agreement. That's from Cleveland. They were initially supportive of the loading space shown on the site plan as proposed, noting that there are concerns because you won't be able to do that off Victoria Street based on that design.
Engineering was supportive of this proposal entirely with that one loading spot, or they were just supportive of adding that one loading spot as part of an approach to loading and drop off?
The latter of what you just articulated is correct.
Okay. No, that's it for me.
Thanks, John. Andrew?
I don't think that I had much additional to add. I know this has been at the panel 3 times. Does engineering consider they'll provide a ramp for parallel parking into that stall, or otherwise make that a feasible stall?
I believe the plan would be for that to be a rollover curb and sidewalk so that it would be functional. But engineering is kind of looking at this with active transportation and looking for solutions, given that Loggers Lane cross section hasn't been designed yet. So it is ongoing, recognizing the challenges for this site and that they are still working through the detailed design on that.
Okay, that's everything from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Celso?
Hi, so questions. On the renderings, you show like some shadows on that window frame with a little bit of a lighting. Is this because that frame is going to be offset from the spaced away from the facade, or there is a LED or something like that? I just wanted to.
No,
I
it was
guess-
just, for some reason, when we rendered it, that kept showing up, and
Wait.
when we removed the shadows and everything away, it looked too flat, so we did put it on, but we didn't have the time to figure out why it was also showing a bit of light there, but it is not the intent to have LED lights there.
Okay, or a spaced away from the that's a rendering issue.
Yes, just that line of light by the windows, all the windows, it appears, is a rendering issue.
I don't have any further question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Also, Michael?
Hi there. Yeah, had a few quick questions. Can you just confirm that the planters on the residential units balconies are not planted as part of the project, but will be up to private residents to plant themselves?
Yes, that's confirmed.
Okay. Do you know what the slope of the patio is? I note that the slope at the entrance on Cleveland is 5%. Is that also reflected in the patio?
Do you mean the patio on Cleveland?
The commercial retail market patio, yeah.
Yeah, no, that, let me zoom in and see. I don't think that would be 5%. Initially, it would be here, and then it would slowly slope away to meet with the, with what the street level is. So that will be worked out with our, with the civil engineer when we get further.
But it'll be under 5%?
It would be no more than 5%, but we would prefer to have it less. So this side here, at least on the existing sidewalks by the residential entry, is where the lowest elevation was. And then it slowly goes up, and along Victoria as well, it starts to go up from there. So this point here where the residential entry is was the lowest point.
Okay. And then on the loggers end, the exit of the residential lobby, there's it kind of goes down at 2% and at 4 point something percent. So there's a low point in that corridor, the exterior corridor.
Yeah, so that's the exterior. We're going to have drainage, drainage there that the mechanical will work out, but we wanted to have 2% or so away from the building in case water does get in there. And then the loggers lane side is actually the highest elevation. So that's where we end up having those higher, that's why we ended up having the 4.8% grade to try to meet it. But those numbers will be adjusted as we work further with the civil, but we'll stick within the required no more than 5% in the direction of travel and 2% for cross slope as typically required.
Okay. And then in the renderings, back to the commercial patio space, it looked like the seating, what's labeled in seating on the plans in the renderings looked like it's more table height with people sitting in chairs at that table height. Can you confirm if it's seating or use more as a...
we had originally put seating, and then we happened to get coffee down the street at the donut coffee shop. I'm blanking on the name. Thank you. At and they had a table level height, and it was just so lovely. So we were trying that out on here, and I think it really works well for this because then people can sit up at and use that as the table.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any more questions.
Great. Unless someone jumped on, I think that leaves me. So my first question is to you, Bryan. What's the status of the BCR strip acquisition around Loggers Lane?
I do not know the answer to that question. I will look at my manager to see if she knows the answer. She also does not have the answer. My apologies.
You are forgiven. Okay. And the second question I had was just kind of around your comments around Victoria Street. So I just looked at the streetscape standards, and so it'll be a bike lane on either side. And so that's integrated into this plan, obviously.
Yeah, we're aware that that's what the streetscape standards will be. And because the civil engineer hasn't done those accurate drawings yet, we just sort of roughly put what the spacing was. So, oh, that was too much. I don't know if you can, yeah, so we sort of had the sidewalk that's wider and then there'd be the bike lane. Actually, maybe we show it better on the, yeah. There, so what we show is just the approximate, let me slide over those distances. So you have the travel lanes, there's a buffer strip, the bike lane, the boulevard, the sidewalk. So we show those in the different colors for you to get a sense of how far out from the building that will be.
Okay, and can you just remind me the number of bike parking spaces versus units?
Yes, so there's 20 units and we can accommodate 40 bikes. So we'll have 2 bike, like the bike storage per unit. And that's just the Class A parking. Then we also have for the commercial area, 2 Class A. And then the Class B parking, which is outside, we need 6. And on this one, I actually show 8 because there's space up at the front of the building. And I figured we'd work that out further with Bryan in planning to see where they prefer to have those, because we could have a few up front and then the rest at the back.
Gotcha. Okay. So we will switch now to
Sorry,
comments.
I have one more clarification question, sorry.
Fire away.
In the active transportation design that's the issued for tender set, the boulevard space on Victoria shows no trees or furnishings. It's just a sod boulevard. In the renderings shown here, I see trees and furnishings, but those are not actually part of this design that we're talking about now. So I guess this might be a question for the district. Am I understanding correctly that there are currently no furnishings or trees in the boulevard of this block?
Yes, that's correct. Whatever the design drawings that are issued for tender, I believe that the district may be open to accommodating trees as part of a development project. But as the project work that we're undertaking ourselves is not including that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Cognizant of time here. John, how about you start us off with comments? John Chapman, you are on mute if you're talking. Or maybe
Thank
called
you.
away. Oh, there you go.
You think I'd have that figured out by now? Thanks, Carlos. Yeah, so definitely appreciate that the designer made some effort with the Cleveland facade. Adding the glazing and decks and so on is a good start. That very blocky vertical element in the middle is still like fairly obtrusive. That's such a high profile location. I really think this corner deserves more effort on the design there. It's a really significant new development on Cleveland Ave, and it'd just be a real shame to build something that isn't really fantastic there. In terms of a residential building with no parking, I think it's a really interesting idea and something that we need to move to over time. I think that for a project to move forward with no parking, it really needs to be very well thought out and have, really like progressive thought towards vehicle mitigation and parking or sort of loading and drop off and sort of the operational requirements. And so it just feels a bit lacking. I think traffic, like vehicle demand management should be a bigger piece of that variance request that this project is seeking. So appreciate that some efforts have been made. Still feels like it could be a little better.
Okay, thanks, John. Andrew?
I think since the first proposal, I think the proponent has certainly done a lot more to address the concerns on the Cleveland Avenue and Loggers Lane frontages. I think as the guidelines are stated, they do adequately meet the guidelines. I would echo John's sentiments around, it's a pretty impactful corner of Cleveland and Victoria, and it's a pretty impactful area just within Squamish. So, to the extent that the guidelines request significant building articulation, I would say that is met. I think that at least there is a loading space. So I would also encourage some consideration into how that building is going to function throughout its life cycle. But certainly improvements have been made, and that the PMT has been recited. Allows for that Loggers Lane Victoria frontage to be a much nicer corner. So generally, I think this a lot of changes have been made for the better on this project.
Thanks, Andrew. Celso?
Yeah, I would like to thank Bryan and the design team to continue to pursue excellence on this building. As everybody said, this is a very prominent lot in the city. So I like most of the changes made. I think we all still have concerns about the longer elevation there, but I think it's going in the right direction right now. I will have two suggestions mostly, which is if we look at A2.0, please, and you zoom on the loading area, maybe people can see that in the room. I understand the red dotted line is the dedication for the PMT by the requirements of the utility company. And I understand one of their requirements is to put bollards, not to allow, for example, vehicles to be using that space. And my question here is whether there is any thought of potentially moving the wall along grid line K minus or whatever. You see there's a stall 1/2. There's a little room there that I think it's the same room you might need to actually have the PMT bollards and everything else aligned with that other green line. Because my concern is that once the van actually parks along and pretty close, which they will not do to those bollards, they're going to end up actually parking on the sidewalk. So if everything could be pushed.
Hey, Celso, I'm just going to jump in real quick. Sorry to interrupt. We only have 5 more minutes with Mr.
Sure.
Chapman. So just brevity, please, sir.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. So my concern is to identify that loading area, push potentially the PMT, and also, if all possible, move the door that it's back into a corridor and somewhere where people could sleep there, accessing or exiting from the building. Those would be my main concerns. And suggestion-wise, if we look at the elevation at Cleveland, I would suggest that the canopy, which being glazed now, it's much better, ends at the concrete-looking wall and not going to the residential area. So we have the residential actually a little bit more pronounced and identified. Thank you so much. Sorry for the longer comment.
Don't be sorry there, Celso. Thank you for keeping it brief for us. Michael, you're up next.
Yeah, I just have two comments. One is I like the decision to make the seating more a table height. My concern with the seating at the corner there was people were going to not see that and trip on the seating. So I think moving to tables height is a good move. And then the other thing I'm wondering about is if the grade changes at that exit onto loggers can be addressed within the building, potentially reducing some of the drainage concerns outside, and also maybe improving some septet in terms of taking that sort of narrow corridor inside the building as opposed to being outside the building. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Okay, I'll keep mine brief. So I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I do see this building in its proposal with no parking to be a bit of a big swing. But I think that's going to be for council to decide. And while the building aesthetics seem to have some improvements, it might not be for everyone. But right now that area is an empty lot and there's no commercial and there's no place to sit down and have a nice coffee. And so I think perfect can be the enemy of good in a lot of these proposals. And I think what's shown is certainly an improvement from what's there right now. I'll flag that like Loggers Lane and our understanding of Loggers Lane needs to get sorted, and it's been a decades-long process. And I think once we understand how that road functions and flows and is improved, we'll have a lot more comfort around buildings on Cleveland that back onto Loggers that clearly has a ton of issues. So I will just plug getting that sorted. And so with that, I think we've got three options in front of us as a panel. We can support the project as presented and that it does not need to return for further review. I think the caveat to all this is that because it's 100% rental, it actually doesn't have to come back at all, right? Do I even need to make a recommendation here on this?
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, so
With the caveat.
yeah,
Yeah.
Just that any of the recommendations where it's not, there just can't be one where it's.
Okay, correct. So it either does not need to come back for further review because we love it so much. B, we support the project as presented and would like the applicant to work with staff to resolve the following recommendations that we can work on, or C, that the panel does not support the project as presented for the following reasons. Does anyone have a motion that they would like to move?
I'd like to move a motion to approve B, as in Bravo.
Do I have a seconder? Andrew and John. Okay. I think we could have some discussion around it, but frankly, I don't know that we have the time. So I think wasn't a super long meeting, not very complex. I think there's a number of ideas and comments that were said that can be worked on by staff. And so I will take a show of hands, or Michael, if you can just vocalize your thoughts. But I've so far got three members that are in support. I'm in support as well. And Michael?
Yeah, I'm in support.
Okay, so it looks like B is passed, and we did it with 1 minute to spare. Motion to terminate. John Chapman, seconds. All in favor. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Awesome. Nice work, Carlos. Thanks, everybody. Brian,
Thank you.
over to you now.
Thank you.
Thanks.